We are live.
Except you can't see the questions. You have to use your phone. Go to YouTube.
That's fine. We'll do that.
What's up, everybody?
A little technical difficulty.
Let me tell you something. It's a whole hell of a lot easier going on everyone else's show. I got to just be honest about that. It's much easier. I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to Liberty and Finance and Elijah, who got us here barely, sort of, by the seat of our pants. So Elijah, I love you, brother. Thank you. We're going to attempt to answer some questions tonight, and we have some already that viewers had submitted, and we're going to do the best we can and hopefully not screw this up. But welcome, Kevin. Good to be here with you, buddy.
Very good to be here. I'm just trying to see if we can
turn that volume. It actually is working, isn't it?
All right.
Oh my God, we did it.
All right. We didn't do it yet. We're getting there. So this, you should tell them a little bit about where we are.
Yeah. So normally this is my kind of my man cave office. Normally I'm sitting in a different spot, but if you remember the first time we did this, Kevin looked like Tattoo from Fantasy Island.
I got a big boy chair. I feel good. I got a big boy chair now.
I'm growing. Work sitting next to me. So behind me are three pictures. Might as well just say my favorite artist, Sebastian Kruger. You got Mick Jagger up there, right there, Jimi Hendrix right there, and David Bowie over Kevin's ear. I don't know. I've always loved rock and roll. In my office here, I kind of have me. I have my baseball cards that are on a frame on the wall. I got my music on one end, and I got all my monetary pictures that Miles Franklin made that I ended up keeping and not selling. I ended up liking them so much. But I figured I'd switch it up a little bit and give Kevin his own seat so he doesn't look like Tattoo.
Yeah, it's nice to be sitting at almost the same height as you.
Yeah,
almost for once.
Are you able to see questions that people are asking?
No, not yet.
I don't even
I'll
know
figure
if
it out.
anyone's even here.
But what I think that what we had discussed earlier was we've been getting a lot of questions as brokers, trying to kind of take us through the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s of metals.
Right.
And I thought that what better time than kind of the launching of your own channel was to give kind of the tutorial of the do's and, more importantly, the don'ts of buying metals, because as we know and as we see every day, unfortunately, there is a tremendous amount of scammers out there that will try and just take your money and run.
Yeah, it's really icky. It's a federally non-regulated industry, and it's kind of been our mission to expose this criminality, and it really is criminal. I think people need to understand that it's buyer beware. The onus is on the buyer to make sure. Part of the problem with some of these companies is that for some reason they have really robust, Better Business Bureau portfolio or reputation or A+ ranking. I don't know how the hell they do it, but
I will tell you, it's important just to don't just look at the ranking. Always read the reviews below it, because you will see some of those reviews out there of things that we're talking about that most people just go and they see an A+ rating and they move on. They say these guys are very reputable and in good shape.
But not only that, what we were talking about today. Remember what you said to me? If you see it and it's just pitching an IRA, perhaps with a public spokesman.
Yep, that is definitely the case. If you go to a website and they only list IRAs and booklets that they'll email you, or free brochures, or
looks good,
free gold or free silver with a certain amount spent, definitely do a very, very deep dive, and chances are put your sneakers on and run.
Yeah,
because that's not who you want to be doing business with.
No, and one of the things that we see over and over and over again, let's just be clear about something. Pull out your pens and pencils and your paper. There are 6 major mints in the world. There are more, but the 6 that will never get you into trouble. I shouldn't say never, because I'm going to go a little bit deeper on this, but typically we call it Pepsi, Coke, Sprite, 7-Up, Dr. Pepper, and A&W root beer, and that would be the U.S. mint with the Eagle, the Canadian mint with the Maple, the Austrian mint with the Philharmonic, the Australian mint with the Kangaroo, the UK mint with the Britannia, and South Africa with the Krugerrand. And you'll notice that I didn't ever mention any oddball coin. It's the main coins issued by these mints. Part of the problem, and what we see over and over and over again, is, well, I'll tell a little bit of a little story here. I have a guy that is a friend of mine here, and I golf with him, and I found out that he worked at Stratton Oakmont, which is Jordan Belfort's firm. That's the Wolf on Wall Street. And I asked him, I said, "Hey man, did you get in trouble?" He said, No. I left when I sensed that this was going on. He says, "But you know what the crazy thing is? Every one of the dudes that I worked with left and opened up their own shop and did the exact same thing Jordan was doing." Well, this is what we're seeing in this industry as it pertains to IRAs. And it's the same MO every single time. It's quarter ounce gold coins that I've never, ever heard of. Maybe I've heard of the mint. Maybe it comes from the Australian mint, perhaps the Royal Canadian Mint or whatever mint. But they're quarter ounce gold coins that if you go on any of the major websites for precious metals, you'll never find it. Maybe one out of a dozen companies will carry this stuff. But typically, it's a quarter ounce gold coin priced between $800 and $1,200 an ounce. And silver coins ranging from 1 to 1.5 to 2 ounces for between 60 and 100. And what do you think they say to these folks, Kevin? What are they telling people as to why they should own this nonsense?
They are the premium coins.
Yeah.
They are not the common coins. The common coins are the ones that Andy just talked about, the 6 major mints of the world.
The only ones that I own.
And by the way, those common coins are the ones that you do want to own. The premium coins that they sell, which are generally quarter ounce gold pieces that are probably 2 to 3 times the value of actual gold, the melt value at least. And they tell you it's between a 3, 5, and 10-year time horizon. But unfortunately, when you wait 3, 5, 10 years, by that time, you'll probably be lucky to break even.
Yeah. So right now, the highest price with gold basically at all-time highs here in the neighborhood of $26.60, the highest that I would have ever sold a quarter ounce gold coin for would be roughly $731.50. That's top of the food chain. That's a brand new 2024 quarter ounce eagle in that ballpark, right? Even if you're buying a $5 Liberty, which is basically a quarter ounce, a pre-1933 coin, you end up with way less than $800, and unless you're getting a high grade. But the bottom line is these companies are selling and have been for years quarter ounce coins that are more than this: 800, 900, 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, and silver coins, approaching $60, and they're the premium coins. But this is a growing epidemic, you guys. It truly is. It's a growing epidemic, and it's really disgusting. And these companies are outright criminals, as far as I'm concerned. And out of respect, I'm not going to mention their names. But if you've been tangled up with one of these companies, you should let us know, and we will tell you what you have, what it's worth, and help you find a solution if there is any. I try to be respectful about this. I try not to throw anybody under the bus, truthfully, as much as I'd like to. As much as I would like to debate the chicken shit owners of these companies, it ain't going to happen. You never see an owner for any of these companies out in front of the public like I am every single day, multiple times a day, because I have nothing to hide. And in 34 years of business, almost 35, we've made mistakes, but we've never had a customer complaint, because when we do make a mistake, we make it right. But this is why I've worked with guys like Rick Rule for 2 decades and his clients, because he said to me, if I get one complaint, I ain't ever going to come back to you. When I speak at his conference, he'll get up on a podium and say he's never had one. So reputation is really important. Doing your due diligence is really important. But you know what's not really important? This is my high-paid spokesman right here, tattoo. It is not. It is not someone who's getting paid, $30,000-$40,000 a month to promote a company that by the exterior looks really, really good. And I would argue that these promoters don't even know the depths to what is happening. They probably let these guys purchase their own gold at cost. They say lovely things about them, and then they're off after they do the commercial. But what is happening is that these people are being destroyed, You think that's a fair appraisal?
100%. And I know that we're getting some comments. Unfortunately, I don't know why the chat is disabled, so we'll have to try and figure out if
you can look at it on your phone.
Yeah, I'm trying to fix it now, but I don't know whether or not I'll be able to do it.
I think you
take a minute just to try and figure this out so that we can see it. We have to.
Other channel is blurry.
Huh? Yeah, that's because it's not on. But we have to.
So hey, Diane Rogers and Alan Ritter, please go to the other channel. Thank you, Jake. Custom part. You know I love you, brother, and I'm gonna have Jake on our show, and Jake and I are talking about that, and he.
Oh, that's not it. That's
That's it right there.
No, well no, that's it.
Boy,
that's
I feel old. Like my daughter would call me really old.
You did look old right there.
She would call me old and a nerd. You know, I got a tattoo. See that tattoo? My wife, I was with him in Amsterdam and he made me get a tattoo. It's his fault.
Yeah.
It's midnight in Amsterdam where really nothing good happens. And his wife, my wife, and me reluctantly decided to go get a tattoo with tattoo. And I was dragged along and freaked out. I've never had one. Finally I'm like, okay, peer pressure got the better of me. I'm not a quitter. I'll do it. And I did it. And my wife called my daughter, your dad's getting a tattoo. She says, that's dope. That's rad, or whatever word kids say these days. Fire, I guess she said. And then when I sent her a picture of what I got, the periodic table of elements, she called me a nerd. It's funny, too, because I was walking through the house about 2 weeks ago, and her college prep professor was here. And I walked by. He says, hey, excuse me, sir, is that the periodic table of elements on your arm? I said, why, yes, it is. So, you know, it's would have come in probably more handy in high school before I understood what they were as a tool for cheating. But
we were also very late for dinner that night because your tattoo took so long because he said he's never seen anyone cry.
Yes. Hey, a tattoo like Jordan Silver Slayer. Watching the live stream, good quality. You have to turn on commenting unless you purposely turn comments off.
Well, so I see it here.
Jay, how the hell do I do this, brother?
I see it here.
Where?
All the way at the bottom, but it says comments and ratings. Let me just
turn it on.
I'm trying. You select the thing to say like, man, your channel.
The Silver Slayer is one of the nicest dudes.
It's made for kids. That's why you did it.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
The Silver Slayer is one of the best guys I've ever met in 35 years of business. You all need to check out his channel. He is a fantastic person, and I'm honored that he represents Miles Franklin, and I love him like a brother. You got that?
Yeah.
Tattoo?
Let's see.
Did that work? Oh, look at that! Way to go!
This is.
Wait. Chat is disabled for this live stream.
Oh, because it's probably no. I think that's right.
Hold on. And by the way, y'all, we'll be done before I get to watch my ex-governor make a fool of himself. He is the reason I left Minnesota, Governor Walz. And there you go. Yeah. Live chat.
I'm trying live reaction, slow mode. Okay, can't. So I see it. How do we?
Chat is disabled. What the
hold on.
heck?
It's got to be in there somewhere.
I'm so upset.
I know, but
it's Kevin's fault. Everything's Kevin's fault.
Can you ask Jordan if he knows how to enable chat once we're here?
Jay, how do I enable the chat, brother? He
so
says,
while you're doing it,
I don't know.
What?
Andy and Tattoo, tell folks to go to the old link. And everyone's calling you Tattoo now. I love that. Click this video isn't made for kids.
Oh, he said it's on. Who said it's on? Josh said it's on.
My son?
Yeah.
Hi, Josh.
Okay, so I should be able to see it now in here. Okay, so now we're good. I think we're good. We'll figure it out.
Cooking with fire now?
I think so.
All right.
I think we're good.
Hey, you guys got to bear with me, man. I've been doing other people's podcasts for 4 years, and like the tattoo, I went not this tattoo. I went kicking and screaming, and brought tattoo with me.
Technology is not his forte.
No, it's not.
You know what I'll tell you that I think is an important thing to tackle. What we get asked a lot at when people say, "How come I'm paying more than I'm seeing on the computer?" When they don't really understand spot versus premium. You know what I say is the raw material. And then the dealers or the refiners or the mints then charge.
Well, let's first talk about spot because spot is something that is different from website to website. Typically, you'll find of all the major online companies, our spot price is going to be lower than almost every single company, which is beneficial to you all. And the reason they are different from I gotta shut off my it works now. Tell people refresh and the chat will pop up. Thank you, Jay. Refresh, y'all. Refresh and the chat will pop up.
Well, I'll look at them because you can't.
Right.
Well, I don't think we can refresh.
I wonder if you refresh this, that'll screw us up and we'll end
That's
up
what I'm saying.
Don't do
yeah.
it.
So
anyway, so the spot is a reflection of the most actively traded futures, the futures that is being traded at the moment. So now I guess it would be the October or the November futures. And then you have to back out a switch, which is the time aspect, right? And I don't know exactly how my traders do this. I don't know, but it's kind of a special sauce that everyone has a little bit of a difference in their spot. And some companies will pad their spot. And you can see who those are pretty easily by comparing it with ours. I will say Kitco has the lowest spot, but it's typically lower than everyone. And I think that might be because it's a delayed quote. But it's lower than everybody. And next to them, I think we're the lowest, which is very beneficial when you're buying. Okay, so spot. That's like how much gold is traded for globally at the moment, or within a percent from every other entity that's quoting spot. And then the premium for most of my career has been a function of production, where the mint will buy raw gold and silver, typically in the form of what's called a planchet. They'll buy the planchets often from companies like Sunshine Mining, as an example, who will mint these blank discs, send them into the mint. The mint will then stamp them once if it's a commercial strike, put them in tubes of 20 and boxes of 500 and send them out to distributors like myself, who then will make a very small markup above that cost and sell it to the public.
Before you go there, what if it's not a commercial? What if it's not just one strike? Then what's it called?
Well, then that's called a proof coin. And a proof coin is struck usually 1, 2, 3, 4 for greater definition. But first it's polished under an industrial buffer so you can see a reflection in it. And then it's put in a velvet case and sold for 2-3 times what the spot price is. And you can buy those directly on usmint.gov, but you cannot buy the commercial strikes that we sell. Typically, I'll buy 3 proof coins a year for my 3 kids, but it isn't the way to build a portfolio. Excuse me, I'm battling a little bit of a cold, and hopefully I don't get USIC tattoo.
You probably did.
But the the thing to keep in mind is some of these IRA companies that are preying on the public will focus on coins like proof coins. Oh, they're much better. You definitely want them. No, you really don't. You really don't want them. And what you want is a bullion heavy coin issued by a very respectable mint, period. And but nothing, even a 400-ounce gold bar will sell at a $6 or $7 premium to spot. Nothing sells at melt value. Nothing sells at spot. And during the pandemic, we witnessed something that I'd never seen before in 35 years of business, and that is premiums that were more a function of supply and demand than they were a function of production, as they always were. And in fact, I spoke with a lady this evening, and she said, Andy, I was just looking at an order we did in 2023, and silver was $25 an ounce, and yet I paid $41 a piece for silver eagles. I said, yeah, that's what premiums were then. In fact, we were buying them back from the public for north of $14 over spot. And that is something I've never seen before. But understand this, y'all, and that is that Rick Rule, my buddy, will tell you that the average allocation or the total allocation of gold and silver from Joe and Jane six-pack to the Harvard Endowment Fund is less than 0.5%. And you add some event, whatever that event may be, a banking crisis or, heaven forbid, something even more concerning, which reminds me of something I want to talk about right now in a moment. When we talk about something more concerning, you talk about weirdness, premiums will go to the moon because there's not enough metal out there to satisfy the tremendous amount of money. And the American public for 2 years has been void of this market. You can see it in the ETF outflows that have been going down at a 45-degree angle, but now they're ticking back up. And Goldman Sachs is saying, by third, fourth quarter 2025, over $3,000 gold, close to 3,100, and that they're being bombarded on their trading desk. It's beginning to happen. The collective realization that perhaps things are a little bit sketchy are beginning to sink in, and I expect premiums to go much higher. But one of the things I wanted to mention when we talk about this craziness, this event, whatever that event may be, and I've never sold gold, you guys, ever. When I say gold, I mean silver too, but I've never sold it. Kevin will tell you I've never sold it based upon fear. To me, I've owned it as wealth. And I've always told the story of how I've been buying it every 2 weeks. That was a promise I made my dad when we started this company. And I have for 35 years. I have never missed a 2-week period, ever. To me, it's wealth. I owned it as wealth, as money, a replacement for the money in the bank that is losing 7 or 8 or 9% per year to money creation and inflation, if not more. I chose to own gold and silver instead. But as this year and the last few have come and gone, and this year is starting to spin faster and faster and faster and faster with craziness everywhere, I'm beginning to think that it's really important to think like a contrarian, or you'll end up a victim. I do believe that. Now, here's my point. We're 40 days away from maybe the most important election in our lifetimes, in most people, maybe everyone's lifetime that's alive right now. And what's Congress doing? Check this out. I've talked about this on a couple podcasts today. Congress has a proposed constitutional amendment, the 28th Amendment, which is called the Continuity Amendment, which basically says that if there is a mass casualty event of over 100 congressmen and women at one time, that they will sidestep and skip the special election. Hundreds of special elections have happened over the years where someone gets elected and say, I don't want to do this, I'm out, or dies in a car crash or whatever. They have a special election, and the voters get to choose who replaces this person. Yet you take a look at Kamala. Well, there was no special election there. They just put her in there. She didn't earn any votes. Dean Phillips, my buddy who I used to play softball with from Minnesota, he earned more votes than Kamala did, right? Kamala earned no votes. Well, that's what they're saying. If there is a mass casualty event, what the hell are they trying to make a 28th Amendment for 40 days before election? A mass casualty event of 100 or more congressmen die. Well, then there are no special elections. Each governor will submit a list of 5 or 10 names. I forgot. I think it's 5. And the Speaker of the House and the representatives will pick one of those 5, or the governor picks the 1 out of the 5, and the House leader, Speaker of the House, will implement them and immediately seat them. Yeah. No special election, no nothing. Now I'm not
designated survivor.
Yes, that's the movie.
That's what it is. Yeah,
that's crazy, you guys. Why is that what we're talking about 40 days before election when the world is spinning out of control? I don't know. Yeah. And that's why I think premiums will only go higher.
I want to give a shout out to Pete. Pete said tattoo. Andy never lets anyone talk.
You can talk tattoo. Go ahead, brother. Let's go ahead. Let's see what you got to say.
We're good. I want to go back to what you were talking about with the IRAs, because I think what's important is because there's so much misinformation. I think one of the important things that you can shed some light on with your vast experience in metals is, in an IRA, we get asked all the time, is it better to own coins? Is it better to own bars? Do you want to own weight? Do you want to own, the premium metal of the two? Yeah. I think that's a very valid question. And sometimes there's different answers for different people. So, I think now is probably a good forum to give.
I think the one part about the IRA that people need to understand is that you have the ability to take possession of the metal. It's a taxable event. It's a distribution or a liquidation, but it is a taxable event. But so what? If you want the metal, you can get it. It's called a in-kind distribution. So you would need to think about what your goals are, what your intentions are. Do you want to take possession down the road? If so, maybe you buy coins, American Eagles or whatnot. But I will tell you that I think the silver to gold trade is the trade of a generation. And you buy silver at this 80-ish to 1 ratio with the intention of switching it to gold when the ratio corrects. Anywhere south of 50 to 1, it's pretty damn near a double. And in an IRA, there are no taxes involved. So in that respect, you'd probably want to own bars. And last week was a good example of how I think this would ultimately play out. Last week, I think on Thursday, gold was up $32, $33. 1.1%, and silver was up like $1.60, 5.1%. So while the $31 or $32 is certainly more impressive, that 5-to-1 outperformance percentage-wise in silver is what I would expect to see happen. That was one day. What if it happens for 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months? Who knows? I think typically if you go back through bull markets, gold goes first, silver outperforms it percentage-wise like a slingshot and passes it. So I would say if you're playing the gold to silver ratio, you want silver bars, kilos and 100-ounce bars. If you're buying gold, for me, I like gold eagles. And I think, whether you're buying 1 ounce, 1/2, 1/4, 1/10 ounce, I like the gold eagles. And with 11 states already passing legal tender laws and as many as 20 already looking at this in their legislature, calling coins like gold eagles legal tender, the demand for gold eagles and silver eagles at some point, I think, go parabolic when those people sleeping, who are now, looks like they're waking up on the ETF inflows, realize that many of the states that they live in maybe are passing legal tender laws of gold and silver. So if you're playing the swap.
Well, that being said, I think it's important to kind of just brush on what the legal tender laws are and the distinction between, an actual legal tender coin versus a round, because that leads into what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Do we buy rounds for IRAs? Do we buy coins for IRAs?
You buy whatever the hell you want in an
Right.
IRA, but a coin is the legislation basically says sovereign mint coins issued by a sovereign government, past or present. Some say, like Oklahoma, just American Eagles or American-made coins, and Texas too. So where you're buying pre-65 dimes and quarters and $half, you're buying old Morgan silver dollars if you want, $20 gold pieces, gold eagles, buffaloes, whatever, because it's legal tender for all debts, public and private, including paying your property taxes. And they say things like, you can't make a shop owner take it, but if they're inclined to do it, you can. And it's the value of the coin, not the face value. It's the melt value plus any market premium that is agreed upon, not the $50 face value on a 1 ounce eagle or a $1 face value on a 1 ounce
Which
eagle.
designates that
Silver.
the difference between a coin and a round.
Yeah. A round doesn't say United States Mint legal tender. Uncle Sam doesn't like competition and money creation. And so the rounds will typically look like a buffalo. A lot of people think the buffalo rounds are made by the U.S. Mint. They're not. The U.S. Mint makes the buffalo gold and the eagle gold, and that's it. They don't make the buffalo silver. They make the silver eagle. And so most of the mints, and I guess you could argue it's kind of disingenuous that they will use what looks like a coin. It's a buffalo, looks exactly like the gold buffalo coin in silver, but it doesn't have a face value and it doesn't say United States Mint on it. So that's the distinction. I guess in a perfect world, I would own American Eagles, gold and silver. But if I'm playing the ratio swap, you want to get as much silver as you can to switch into gold at a later date. 100-ounce bars does the trick.
Okay, so we're going to give Andy just a couple of minutes to catch his breath.
I don't need it.
Well, you should. And then we're gonna go to a question, because your wife will kill me if we don't get to question 1, which had been sent in, I think,
better you than
the
me.
last time. Yeah. So I'm going to leave out some names and some descriptions in here. But basically, it says, my sister and myself purchased a decent amount of gold and silver from Miles in the past. Previously.
Is this you?
No, it's not me. No need to sell me on either metals. I firmly believe in it and love it. Well, thank you very much for that. She has a beautiful paid-for condominium in a wonderful, rather wealthy community that her sister left her. Knowing that the real estate market is starting to crumble around us, as she's seeing cracks in the seams, she's been able to rent it for $1,700 a month unfurnished. Back in June, when her tenant moved on, she was thinking of selling it. In any case, she didn't, and that's when the value was roughly $275,000. She decided to rent it out and take the $1,700 a month income. Well, turns out that the tenant that she had in lost her job, and the woman thinks she'll be able to get another job, but still to this point, she doesn't have one. She's now back in the camp of, do I sell the condo and turn it into metals? She has another house that her sister and she bought in the early 80s. She turned into a lovely bed and breakfast. It's also paid for. But her real question is, as we approach the great financial reset, she understands where gold and silver are going, not understanding how prices, I've heard, go back to the 1955 prices, which gold-backed currency takes inflation out of the equation. Basically, she wants to know, should she sell? Should she try to continue to rent it out?
No right or wrong answer, but I would argue this is the period of time not to be deep in real estate. I mean, the economy is getting rougher. Ultimately, interest rates go higher. When Powell pivoted and lowered interest rates, the interest rate on the 10-year Treasury went higher. That was the rest of the world saying, no, thank you. We see that you're going to be inflating the currency away, so we demand more if we're going to do anything of duration. We want a higher interest rate. And the 10-year Treasury is what is tied to the mortgage rates, particularly. And so I would simply say to you that for most of your life, most of our lives, my life, you go back to 1982 and move forward. It's a downward sloping trend on interest rates, making real estate and people who owned it wealthy, and including stocks and bonds. It was a great bull market engineered by lowering of interest rates, and at the end, manipulation of interest rates. And a country that is creating 100,000 in debt per second or $1 trillion every 90 days, at some point, the rest of the world says, well, let me get this straight. Your currency's backed by nothing. You're 200 trillion in debt when we factor in unfunded liabilities. You're choosing inflation over austerity. You're pivoting to lower rates when you're 65% away from your target rate of 2%. No, thank you. I don't want to hold any duration treasury. You have inflation risk. You have default risk. And when you realize that the economy is getting tough, the real reason they lowered rates is because they know that the information they tell us on employment is full of shit. And they not only did they revise the numbers throughout the year and at the end of the year by about 1 million jobs, 1.3 or 4 million high-paying jobs to American citizens were shed last year, replaced by about 665,000 part-time jobs, many of which are filled by people here illegally. And so the economy is really not great. And I would argue ultimately is going to get worse. And I hate to be the bearer of doom. I hate it, but I'm trying to be realistic. There's a fine line between realism and pessimism. For my entire life, that condo and renting it out for $1,700 a month or whatever it was at that time is money in the bank, and income is huge. But now you need to think of what happens if this woman doesn't get a new job. How are you going to throw her out? How are you going to get her out? Is she going to become a squatter? And maybe she's respectful, but what if they're not? And then what if the market collapses?
And you can't get renters.
Right.
And
so
now you're sitting on it, but you still have your bills to pay. So listen, we're living in a situation, unfortunately, that's a quagmire of financial minutia. And it's tough navigating it a lot. But all right, let's get to another question.
But real quick, if it were me, nothing is quick. I'm sorry. But if it were me, I'd probably sell it.
Yeah.
And whether you put it into gold or not, I think it would be just from the way you phrased it, it would probably be a burden off your back, and sit on the sidelines. It can't be the worst thing.
I agreed. All right. We have one from Tom coming in. He's got a couple of them, but he wants to know what percentage of the population has to own and believe in precious metals in order to make a difference. Wherein, because of the percentage of ownership of precious metals, there is a critical mass to overcome the intentions of the reigning sons of bitches.
Yeah, well,
there you go, Tom.
And I agree, Tom. But, the most I think it's ever been is about 8% in 1980. People just wanted, and that, by the way, was the last time the Dow Jones and the price of gold crossed at about 850. And I think you might see that again. I don't know what number, but you certainly could. And so I don't know. I mean, the American public has been missing in action for most of my career, if not all of it. And in particular, in this rally, which is really crazy. If you would have told me at any time in my career that, yeah, you'll be seeing the futures touch 2,700 last week and in the mid 26s now, and no one's talking about it, you don't see it anywhere, I would say you're out of your mind. What are you smoking? Can I have some? And I would simply say to you that the public is asleep. That's the biggest contrarian indicator I've ever seen. And so I don't know what it takes for the public to wake up. There's a whole school of investment ideology called wave theory, where it's all human emotions. And when there is something that wakes the public up, where you see 5, 7, 8, 10% allocation, which would still be woefully under allocated, the biggest problem people will have will be getting product. Where it's really happening is with the central banks right now. That's what should be waking people up. I know you want to talk.
Well, one of the things that you touched on it, which I think is a great point, is, I mean, God, how many financial advisors do we know?
A lot.
Like a ton, including my brother-in-law. And I'll tell you, back in the day when I was in finance and actually a broker, they would always say your recommended allocation model would put metals between 5 and 10%. What Andy's talking about 1/2 of 1%. If we double that, think about what the price of metals could be.
Yeah.
If that goes to 1%, but if we take 3%, just imagine what the opportunity is then. So yes, I agree with you on what you were saying, certainly from silver and from gold standpoint. I know that there's so many financial people out there, big names, that believe that gold can be 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 an ounce. But realistically speaking, and when we talk about silver and a changeable wealth generation, I mean, triple digit silver, I think completely
100%
realistic. I mean, 100%.
That's
what I would say.
The ratio of silver to gold coming out of the ground is 7-to-1. 7 ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of gold. That is the ratio. Ask Keith Neumeyer; he'll tell you that.
But it used to be 16-to-1.
Well, 16-to-1 for 5,000 years, and that's because it's found in nature in a form called epithermal, very near the surface. But if we took 2660 right now and divided by 7, which is the geologic footprint, we end up with a price of $380. If silver was $380 tomorrow, it would not be out of the question. That is the ratio of what's coming out of the ground, and yet this will be the 4th or 5th year in a row, I think 4th, of a structural deficit of over 200 million ounces of more demand than there is mine supply. So yeah, markets will go higher than anyone thinks possible. And I don't think it'll be the American public that pushes it higher. It will, certainly, at the end, the last hockey stick part, but it's the biggest money in the world who are also the most well-informed traders on the planet, and that's the central and commercial banks. Look what they're doing. That's all you need to see. Loading up on gold and repatriating it from the traditional safe havens, the Bank of England and the New York Fed, removing counterparty risk, and it's happening at a level that keeps increasing. That's what's going to do it. And something will wake the public up by then. We'll be pretty late in the game. So make sure you position yourself before that happens.
So Mark White's got a pretty interesting question, because we know that you talk about Glint and that, you've gone Jason podcast with him a few times already. He says, Andy, could Battle Bank be the start of a Glint Pay type banking system in the United States? I don't know if people even know what Battle Bank is. But what's your thoughts?
Battle Bank is a new endeavor by my good buddy Rick Rule, one of the smartest human beings I've ever had the pleasure of being around, who's done a lot for me, and I love Rick. And but I don't think that they have that on the docket. I think one of the things that they're going to be doing is making secured loans on people's gold and silver. I don't think they're going to do a Glint type of program. It's a very heavy lift, and I was very impressed with Jason Cousins of Glint. I do a weekly podcast with him. You're right, called oh my gosh, what is the name of it? Resilient Compass. Sorry, the Resilient Compass. And his program, his software, you can download it on the iTunes, or the Apple Store, or the Amazon. What's the Amazon store for phones?
The
Android store, I guess. But Glint is an electronic form, basically, of gold held on your iPhone. I'll show people mine what it looks like. And it comes with a MasterCard, and you are able to actually spend it. And the technology is phenomenal. I don't have a lot. I have $6,700 of gold in there right there, but I could pay right now. If Kevin had a Glint account and I lost to him in golf, which happens far more than I'd like to admit. But if that were the case, I could pay him. I did beat you once the last week, but if I could pay him,
I had 103 fever.
Yeah. Might have. I could pay him in Glint, and it goes instantly, and there's no.
It's like a Venmo. I mean,
but no charge for it. But I sat at lunch with Kevin and I. Excuse me, cold
in Europe. Too.
In Europe, in London, and he said, "Watch this," and he bought us lunch, and he held up his phone and he gave the credit card to the waiter, and like that, it instantly, in a millisecond. It deducted the amount of gold from his holdings. The gold is held in a vault in Switzerland. And so it's a neat way, if you own enough gold already physically, this is not, but if someone had all the physical gold and silver they wanted, and they didn't want to leave their money in the banking system, this is a neat way to put some money in a secure vault in Brinks in Switzerland, with the ability to access it on a MasterCard and disintermediating yourself from the bank. I think that's a very cool, and the software is unbelievable.
And actually, he used a completely gold card, like an actual.
They don't sell. They don't have them in the States yet. Only in Europe. But it's like I don't know, like a couple ounces of gold. It's a ridiculous rock star type of card. But the Glint program is one that I'm a fan of, and we'll also be here for those people who have Glint that want to transition out into physical metal, and that's where we'll come into play. Hopefully they have evolved in Utah soon. That's one of the things that we're hopeful for. I don't know that, but Brinks, Utah is their bellwether, and I know Jason does a lot with the legislature in Utah, so I would hope that would be it. But anyways, it's a cool program. People should check it out, and reach out to us if you're going to check it out. Info at Miles Franklin, because we'll be able to get you preferential treatment.
So Alan Ritter just said Russia has just committed to buying 500 million in palladium, platinum, and gold.
Yeah. Well, and you know, palladium and platinum are intriguing from a standpoint of an investment. I don't really love palladium. I think platinum is intriguing based upon its relationship to gold, kind of similar to the gold silver deal. Their main uses are in catalytics, platinum for diesel, palladium for unleaded. But the real kicker to it is that both metals are mined mostly in Russia and South Africa, bricks and bricks. So when you talk about drying up the supply of these strategic metals, and that's really what they are. And it's interesting, if you look at the graph that I've shown a lot of people on my shows lately of the short position, the concentrated short position on COMEX, which has 8 banks basically shorting silver to the largest degree of any commodity ever traded in the history of the COMEX. Well, right behind it, 2, 3, and 4 are gold, platinum, and palladium. So they're not precious metals like, you know, I mean, they are. Platinum and palladium are, but they're strategic, and you need them.
What do you think the percentage of people that, you know, purchase from Miles Franklin actually buy platinum?
Very little.
I think 1% maybe.
Yeah. I mean, if I look at my holding, and I've been buying every 2 weeks for almost 35 years, it probably represents 2 or 3% of my holdings. I have 1 ounce of palladium.
I'm surprised it's that much. So this, I think, is very timely, and I want to get to it.
We got 15 minutes before the dum-dum talk. So
right. But this is an important one because it's very timely. What do you think that the port strike and what effect will it have on metal settlement and deliveries?
Well, you know, there are some metals that come in by container, not a lot. Some do. This is a supply, or this is a demand. No, this is a supply side shock versus a demand side shock, which is far worse for the economy, far worse, because during COVID, when everyone was at home with their stimmy checks, spending money online because they couldn't go to the stores, there were orders going all over the place. And so lots of stuff was coming into the ports, yet the ports were jammed up because of COVID. And that was a demand side shock where at least the economy was experiencing transactions and companies were doing business. Some did really well. And, you know, like a marijuana dispensary or a liquor store, these essential places that they kept open. But, you know, there was transactions and the ports were locked down, and just goes to show you how the futures market can dictate so much. When that happened in 2020, oil was pushed down to -40 a barrel. How the hell does that happen? We'll pay you $40 to take our oil because it's sitting in a tanker rotting and no one can get into port. But this is different. And this is a supply side shock where it's basically there's all of these products that would like to get into port, but they can't. And it's not like everyone's buying things in this economy. It's far worse for the economy, far worse. And the ramifications of this happening are pretty significant in the respect that, you know, they're way far off. The longshoremen and the Port Authority, they're way far off on, they're not even speaking. They want what do they want? I think a 70% raise, if I'm not mistaken, over the next 6 years. And they don't want automation. You look at the ports in China, there's 4 or 5 young kids with a joystick and a computer monitor running the port, not all these longshoremen that are expensive. And so, you know, the guy who runs the longshoreman basically said, I'll cripple this economy. And you watch, he will, because we're so far away from being automated. That isn't a solution. And if you shut this down, one day, every day is $5 billion, according to JP Morgan, in lost revenue to the country. You shut this down for weeks on end, it will start to reverberate tremendously. Look at the auto industry. Almost all the automobiles come in through Baltimore and South Carolina. That ain't going to happen. Or are the parts, if you need a new headlight and they don't have it at Volkswagen, guess what? Ain't going to be easy to get it. Or fruit or meat or medicine that is perishable in these containers that are refrigerated. 80% of the bananas come through those ports. It's a big deal. It's a huge deal. And the consequences would reverberate through the economy. But as a side note, I do not think our knucklehead administration will step in and do the, I forgot the name, Taft-Howley or whatever it is. There is a act that basically the president could say, you must go back to work. It's called the cooling off period and renegotiate. I don't think he'll do it because Kamala doesn't want it, because these numbers will not show up in the next CPI number before the election.
Taft-Hartley.
Yes, Taft-Hartley. Thank you. And they won't show up. They won't show up until right after the election in the next CPI number if it goes really bad. But 85,000 union members, you don't want to piss them off or they will vote in unison against you. And interesting, the Teamsters, which this isn't the Teamsters, but the Teamsters union, who have traditionally represented the Democrats, are not endorsing anyone right now. So you start to go against the unions in this respect, bad political decision. So expect this to get a little dirty over the next coming days and weeks. I guess we'll have to see. But in terms of metals, not a massive deal because most of it comes by air and not by shipping container. Some does, but not a lot.
Good answer. All right, Mitch has a good question here. And what are the potential bearish items that could impact precious metals into year end? Dips to be bought. Certainly, I don't think that we're looking at interest rates going higher, which would be, one of the bigger ones. What would you say some bearish situations that could affect?
They're trying to lower interest rates. The betting money has it down another 50 basis points at the next meeting, which, when we've seen metal go up with high interest rates, a strong dollar and a positive real yield and outflows out of the ETFs, it's amazing. Now you change that, you pivot. You have positive yields into the or inflows into the ETFs and a diminishing yield. You would think that would be rocket fuel. But I'll tell you, in my opinion, what is different right now than anything I've ever seen in 35 years, ever. And that is that the big banks around the world have had an aha moment. And they know what we're doing and they will beat us. I often talk about the BRICS grain exchange. And the guy that's running the grain exchange said, we produce more wheat than the West does. We consume more, yet we can't control the prices. It's controlled on the COMEX. But with the development of this new BRICS grain exchange, that will change. They know what we're doing with all of the world's commodities. They understand it. And what they are doing now that they have never done before is stand for delivery. Both the LBMA and the COMEX allow for delivery. The LBMA, the oldest, largest metal hub in the world, delivered 8.1% of the London silver float, all the silver that's available in the month of August. 8%, 26 million ounces. Who's got that kind of bread? The thing is that these countries don't need to get into a hot war with the U.S. to beat us. All they need to do is take advantage of our stupidity, and that is the suppression of these commodities, where these countries in the past, you go back, the COMEX founded in 1974, I mean, most of my career, these countries were borderline third world, certainly weren't coordinated and motivated the way the BRICS conglomerate is, and sophisticated and wealthy like they are now. And they're like, go ahead, drop the price. We're going to stand for delivery. Thank you very much. And they're doing it on COMEX. They're doing it on the LBMA. And now, as I've mentioned, you have China, the second largest producer of silver in the world, flying all around Latin America, buying unrefined doré and concentrate directly from the miners, because it doesn't have to be reported to the IMF. It's very private. It's opaque, and they bring it home and refine it. By the way, do you know that 100% of all the rare earth metals, 100% were refined in China last year? 100%. And most of them are produced in the Eurasian continent. We haven't thought this out too well. But yeah, I think every time they knock the price down, it's just playing right into the hands of the Chinese, the Russians, the Saudis. They're all saying, thank you.
Yeah.
We want the metal. Thank you. We'll stand
and
for
everyone, mainstream media will have you believe that they're really not buying as much, and China doesn't own as much, and Russia doesn't own as much, which of course, I'm certainly not a believer.
Most of my career, China's numbers for gold was stuck at 1,200 tons forever. Yet they produce according to Bill Holter, my good buddy, between 300 and 500 tons a year. They're the largest producers in the world. They are net importers of silver now. They are net importers of gold. They don't export hardly an ounce. They produce more than anybody. And if the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, buys, and they probably have more than the PBOC does, the People's Bank of China, they're not required to report to the IMF. If there is metal bought by a proxy bank on behalf of the PBOC, like a commercial bank in China, they can buy directly from the refiners in South Africa or in Switzerland. They don't have to report to the IMF. And if gold or silver, well, in this case, gold, I don't know if they report silver, but if gold is imported, that is not 995 pure, that doesn't need to be reported either. Think of all of the doré and the concentrate, this unrefined stuff that they're buying, paying double what the West will, because it's opaque, because it's not coming off of an exchange. Zoltan frickin' Pozar was right, you guys. This is Bretton Woods 3. This is the environment where he or she who has the commodities wins. And China, Russia, India, and the rest of the BRICS countries, they get that. And this is why it's not going to go materially lower, because every time they do it on paper, they are exposing themselves to delivery requests, which can, like that, put these banks out of business. And I have a feeling that a bank like Bank of America will be sacrificed at the altar if this continues, because the metal isn't available to meet the delivery demand.
We don't have that much time. We have 8 minutes. Living the Dream just said central banks' net purchases of gold is way down this year.
I don't believe that at all. That's not right.
Yeah, that's not right.
In fact, the first 6 months, and that's not right, my friend. The first 6 months of this year was the most gold purchased by central banks in the history of central banking, only surpassing last year. India, as an example, bought 1.5 times the amount of gold they bought in the first 4 months of this year, 1.5 times the amount they bought all of last year, just in the first 4 months. So whatever you're reading, it's propaganda. It's not true, I promise you.
Russell C. said, what is it going to take for silver to get to 50? I think that, I would say that once we get to 35, there's probably a good shot that we start to
huge shot
up there.
I think it's like 34.5 or right under 35 is the last level of resistance. If you look on it when it came down from 50, it's right in that range. There's nothing between it and 50. But I remember 2011 very well, and I couldn't believe how fast it went from 35 to 50 in a matter of days, and it didn't last very long.
No,
but again, this time is different.
That time around,
no,
right?
But you had the ability. In 2011, people still trusted this country. Yeah. We have squandered the trust of the world by weaponization of the dollar and the treasury, and destroying the value of the treasury market and the dollar through inflation and mismanagement of monetary and fiscal policy. The world, as Putin said, Bretton Woods is dead. The only thing backing the dollar is confidence. And you look at what's happening to this country, as I always talk about, immigration, elections, judicial system, lawlessness, wokeness, all this crap that is just awful. And people wonder what the hell happened. We don't even say the Pledge of Allegiance anymore, for God's sakes, because there's some people be offended by it. I mean, give me a break, man. That's not lost on the rest of the world. It's not. It's a different time now. It is. It's the fourth turning. It's the end of an era, and all currencies, world reserve currencies, meet their end, and we should be doing a lot more to retain the privilege of being the world reserve currency. Instead, we're pissing in the punch bowl to a degree that I can't even believe that it's not getting more mainstream attention.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that happened over the last couple of weeks that I found really amusing that I wanted you to touch on. Number one, state sales tax in Kentucky. Couldn't be the dumbest thing. Maybe.
Yeah, why don't you talk about it? I mean, I know what you're talking about. The governor basically said, I don't care what the law is. No, right?
And told the Department of Revenue, you still charge tax. So now we have clients who,
that's a good point,
by state law, shouldn't have to pay sales tax.
It was voted on. It was voted on. They repealed it, and I think the district attorney or the state attorney said,
the Supreme Court there that said the district attorney that said, no, I'm sorry, it was, I think the Supreme Court said, absolutely not. It is not a revenue, or it's not a bill that you are paying. Therefore, so you have no right to veto.
Yep.
And he said,
too bad. And so he instructed the Department of Commerce and the Commissioner of Commerce to still charge. So that puts us in a bad position.
It does.
In Kentucky. It really does.
So I'm sorry for everybody in Kentucky, but we have to do from a corporate standpoint what we have to do. We are instructed to do this, but it is just absolutely hysterical. And that's one of 6 states still remaining at short sales tax?
Yeah,
6 or 7?
Wisconsin. Wisconsin just got rid of it.
Yeah.
No, and New
Minnesota's
Jersey just
changing,
got rid of
right?
it. I don't know. Are they?
Is it Minnesota?
No, it's New
changing over?
Jersey.
Oh, yeah, New Jersey's
It's
changing
it's
over. Starting in January.
it's Hawaii. It's New Mexico.
Kentucky still.
And a buddy of ours who lives here, who we golf with, Lando, and Landon said he's from Kentucky. He said, "Yeah, it was crazy when I told him this story." He said the governor was at the Kentucky Derby. It's the first time I've ever seen a governor get booed so loudly at a Kentucky Derby. This is a guy who's an idiot. The people voted for it. And he said, "Nope, too bad. I don't care what the law is." And the attorney general said, "No, you don't have standing here. Too bad." So if we don't charge it, then we end up getting audited by the state of Kentucky and have all of that to deal with. Or if we do charge it, and then it comes back as whatever, unconstitutional or whatever, then we have to deal with that and angry people. So it's a clusterfuck.
Yeah, we now just thinking ahead. I mean, we should have done commentary on the debate while it was going on, so it could have become comedy.
Oh, that kind of like Eli and Peyton Manning on Monday Night Football.
Right, exactly. It would have been great.
We got one time for one more because I want to watch Governor Walz embarrass the shit out of himself, and he's a bad dude. He's left of left, and I'm sorry if I doubt I'm offending anyone, but I left the state of Minnesota. I would tell my wife, I'm never leaving. This is my home. I left because of him, and I never looked back. And God help us if he is now vice president of the United States.
So as in every episode, we want to thank you for joining. Please subscribe, slam that like button. Are we doing anything this week?
I have some amazing guests coming on too, you guys. I got Gregory Manarino. I got Big Swear tomorrow. I got Gregory Manarino. We have
some big special guests.
Some really big ones. I won't
I
know David Morgan is coming on. I'm going to hold a couple of them back that are special, but some real big ones. And Kevin and I, every other week, we'll do these live streams. If not every week, we'll just see, or as needed.
Yeah.
And I'll do, my goal is to do at least 2 of these a week, if not more, one with a guest, one with tattoo. And
as always, any information that you need, info@milesfranklin.com. I have no idea what the phone number is. 952 929 7006. That wasn't my voice. It was.
He's really good at throwing his voice.
I can throw my voice. The unicorn.
It's 9:00. Thank you, everyone.
And don't forget to vote. Everyone out there, vote, vote, vote. Don't forget.
Let's hope it counts.
That's right. So until either next week or the week after, it's been real, little by little.
And then all at once. Schectman. And welcome to Fantasy Island.
There you go. Bye. Have a good one, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, Tattoo. Thank you.
There you go. How do we?
Bye.
Perfect. Way to go. That was good.